Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name's Claire and this is Yoli. I make videos all about houseplant care, sharing tips and tricks I've learned over the years to help keep your plants happy and healthy. And in today's video, I thought I'd show you all of the Monsteras that I've currently got in my collection. I've got quite a few different types of them, some quite unusual, and I just absolutely love Monsteras. I think they are the most diverse, easy to care for, amazing plants. But yes, I really hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. So the first one, and definitely one of my favourites right now, is the Monstera Dubia. I just absolutely adore this plant. I think the colour of its leaves is just incredible. They're almost kind of like a bluey silvery colour, and it's just such an unusual plant, so different from anything else in my collection, and definitely so different to any other Monstera in my collection. It is also just such a ridiculously fast grower. So I got this one from Houseplants in Exeter, and I think I'm right in saying it was about that big when I first got it, and that was only a couple of months ago. And I did put it on a new plank because it outgrew the one that it was on fairly quickly. I'd never done this before, and I was a little bit nervous about taking it off its old plank. I was really worried that I might disrupt its growth because it was properly stuck on there, and I had to kind of peel it off the plank. And I put it on this plank that it's on now, and it's done absolutely amazingly, and I feel like it's giving me a new leaf pretty much every single week at the moment. And the other day I did actually have to extend this plank as well because it's already giving me another new leaf there, and I would say in a week or so it's going to have outgrown this plank. So yes, as I say, very fast growing. One of the things that I've learned in the time that I've had this plant is that, yeah, although it's a very fast grower and it will continue to climb the plank and look really beautiful, it does kind of have a mind of its own, and you can't always rely on the fact that it's going to continue straight up. I did actually have to chop and propagate a section that had grown round the back of the plank recently, and I was like, it's not going to be receiving any light on the back of the plank. I'm not going to be able to see it. I'm not going to be able to appreciate it. And so what I do now is I just kind of train the vines by using little pins. Like if I see the vine starting to go off to one side, what I'll do is I'll just take a pin, and before it's had a chance to put its aerial roots out and actually grip on, I'll just pin that section to kind of guide it in a more central position. And that seems to be working really well at the moment, and I think I'm just going to have to continue to do this. But I know this plant is capable of producing some really mature, huge growth, so I'm really hoping, I mean, if this is anything to go by in the time that I've had it, you can see how the leaves have got so much bigger already. I'm really hoping that as she continues to grow, she's going to really develop and give me some beautiful growth. But yeah, I just absolutely love her. And then this one next to it is actually not a Monstera at all. It's not in the Monstera family, but it is referred to as Monstera Minima because it's got those kind of iconic splits in its leaves that makes it look very Monstera-y. And to be completely honest, it does grow in a very similar way to a lot of my Monsteras. It has very similar care needs, and I find it really easy to look after. It is ridiculously fast growing. I got this one about 6 months ago as a teeny tiny cutting down there, and as you can see, she's grown pretty tall in the time that I've had her, but also she's really started to branch out as well. Like all the auxiliary buds at the bottom have popped, and she's kind of, I don't know, she's really bushing out and kind of growing a bit like a tree at the moment. So as I say, although it's not technically a Monstera, I thought I'd include it because it's a lovely plant, and as I say, has a very similar growth structure. And then this next one's one that if you were to just see it and didn't know that it was a Monstera, you probably wouldn't guess that it was. To me, I kind of almost think it looks more like a Epipremnum or something like that, but this is Monstera Silted Vacana, and I haven't had this plant for that long. I'm still kind of deciding whether or not I want to keep it in a hanger or I want to get it growing a moss pole or something like that, because again, I know these ones are capable of giving you some really gorgeous growth if they are able to climb. But I just think it's so gorgeous. Again, it's got those beautiful bluey silvery leaves. I've had it for a couple of months now, and in the time that I've had it, it's grown really quickly. Again, like I said, Epipremnum vibes. It seems like such an easy plant. It seems very fast growing, very easy to care for, and I would say actually probably makes a really good beginner plant. It's given me literally no grief at all in the time that I've had it. I really don't water it that much. It really doesn't require much care, but it just looks so pretty, and the colour and the pattern of its leaves is just absolutely beautiful. I guess actually quite similar when you put it kind of next to each other to Monstera Dubia that I just showed you, because it's got the same kind of similar structure, more similar than a lot of other Monsteras like Deliciosa and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm just really excited to watch this one grow and see how it develops. As I say, I think I probably should get it on a moss pole just because it's putting out some really lovely aerial roots that I feel like would really, really benefit from that. But it's just such a pretty plant and I just absolutely adore it. And this is the one that I think most people tend to think of when you say Monstera. This is a Monstera Deliciosa and it is such a popular houseplant. It has been just kind of a constant favourite in my collection for years. I've got quite a few Monstera Deliciosas because I think they're just the most beautiful plants. I love those beautiful splits in their leaves and I think they're just kind of such gorgeous statement plants, but they're also ones that are really, really accessible nowadays. You can pick them up in pretty much any garden centre you go to here in the UK and they're not very expensive. They're also, I would say, the plant that got me into propagating. It's one of the first plants that I successfully propagated, and this one that is now, I can't even fit it in the camera, but it's very big nowadays. This one was actually one that started as a little propagation and has now just grown and developed. I've chopped and propagated it multiple times since then as well and created some lovely little babies from it. But it's just a really great all-round plant. I think it's a perfect beginner plant. It is so tolerant of so many different conditions. For example, it's really adaptable when it comes to lighting conditions. It's fairly drought tolerant. I regularly forget to water this one and it's never given me any grief at all. I just think it's a wonderful plant, and as I say, I feel like if you don't have one, you need to get one. And this little one is one that again is really, really popular. It is the Monstera Adansonii, and again it's got those beautiful, beautiful splits in its leaves. It's one that does tend to split quite young, because with some other types of Monstera, such as the other ones I've shown you in this video, sometimes they can take a little bit of time to reach maturity before they start producing fenestration, but this one is just, it's kind of born with it. It just looks absolutely gorgeous. And I did have a really big Adansonii about a year ago, and I don't know, I just kind of fell out of love with it, and that doesn't happen to me very often with plants, so I did end up chopping it up and sending cuttings out. And then I was at the plant swap a few months ago and somebody had a cutting of the Adansonii and I was just like, oh, I kind of do miss that plant. So I got another one and I'm starting again with this little baby. And again, this is one, so I really, 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 I know I've been saying this about a few of them, but I really want to get this one on a moss pole soon. I watched Sydney Plant Guy's video on how he grew his Monstera Adansonii into, I mean, honestly, the biggest plant ever with leaves like that. And it was pretty much all to do with the fact that it was on a really good pole and it could absorb lots of micronutrients. And I keep looking at this one being like, oh my goodness, I must get you on a pole, because if I was able to get leaves that size, I would just be over the moon. But this one, although, so to be honest, it's known as a very easy to care for plant. And although once you get the hang of it, it does tend to be quite straightforward. I have actually had quite a lot of issues with this plant in the past. It's one that when I first got, I kind of took quite a while to get to know before I figured out what it liked and what it didn't. But I think the main gist of it is that it just kind of likes to be left alone and it doesn't like to be fussed over too much. I've got it in a spot where it's really happy and it receives good light, and I water it at the moment probably about once a week, and touch wood, I haven't had any issues. The only annoying thing that I found with quite a few of my Monstera Adansonii in the past is that they are ridiculously susceptible to mosaic virus, which, I mean, a lot of people kind of mistake it for variegation, and it's definitely not. It basically just kind of appears as lots of mottling across the leaves, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. There's no cure for it, and I don't know why they're so susceptible to it, but I have lost quite a few plants to it in the past. So I am just monitoring this one very, very carefully, and I hope that it continues to grow well and there's no issues. But yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. And this is another one that if you didn't know, you probably wouldn't necessarily think Monstera, but this is the Monstera Peru. And annoyingly, I think because I'm filming first thing in the morning, it's not kind of showing the colour of it as well as it could. It's got kind of really beautiful iridescent leaves that almost like when it catches the light have tinges of yellow in them, and I just think it's the most amazing kind of like alien-y, really cool, chilled, easy plant. And it's another one that I didn't actually add to my collection until fairly recently. I had always kind of admired this plant, and whenever I'd seen it, I'd been like, oh, maybe I'll get one of those. But I only actually got this one, I think about 3 or 4 months ago. But in the time that I've had it, it's given me some amazing growth. And as you can see here, it's really starting to vine, and Again, I probably need to get it onto a moss pole quite soon. I know some people do grow these as hanging plants or trailing plants. And yeah, you absolutely can do that. But if you want to achieve some really beautiful big growth, like these leaves here, for example, you do really need to give it something to climb, because without that, it's probably just going to get a little bit stretched, a little bit leggy, and is not going to be looking as happy as it could be. But I'm just totally obsessed with those really robust, shiny leaves. It's quite similar to things like Anthurium luxurians and stuff like that, which is very high on my wish list. But this is one that is going to be a lot cheaper to buy. For a while, again, these ones were considered quite rare, but nowadays you can find them really quite cheaply. I think I only paid about £10–15 for mine, and in my opinion, it was totally worth it. It brings me so much joy, and I just think it's so beautiful. I'll put some clips in and I'll try and kind of capture the colour a little bit better, because as I say, I feel like the camera is not properly doing it justice. And then just behind me here is the Variegated Monstera, and this is one that, oh my goodness, people go absolutely crazy for this plant. Even to this day, it is easier to get hold of, and the price of them is slowly coming down, because at one point they were just mega expensive to buy. But you can see why it's so popular. It's just such a stunning plant. Those leaves just look like they've been painted. They don't look real. I just think it's absolutely stunning. And it's a plant that when it's in the right conditions does actually grow quite quickly. Like this is one that I propagated, I think about 4 months ago. And actually, if you watch my recent Houseplant Struggles video, you will have seen the teeny tiny Variegated Monstera that I've also got. And for some reason, and I don't know why, that one's really not doing much. But this one is giving me an unbelievable amount of new growth. And as you can see, it's got a beautiful new leaf coming there that hasn't quite unfurled yet, but it looks like it's going to have a really beautiful balance of variegation. So I'm really excited about that. But I've got quite a lot of Variegated Monsteras, and the biggest plant in my collection that is very hard to bring down and show you for this video, but I'll put some clips in. The biggest plant in my collection is actually a Variegated Monstera as well. She's not as highly variegated, but oh my goodness, she's just so beautiful. And for such a long time now, I've been thinking, do I chop her? Because I think she's getting on to be about 11 foot, and that is very tall. And I've been super reluctant to chop her in the past, but the only thing now that is making me think maybe I will at some point is firstly, she's getting very tall, but also a lot of her auxiliary buds at the bottom have suddenly popped, and she is starting to give me some new growth there. So I feel like if I was to just trim back a small section at the top of the plant, it would just encourage new growth further down, and hopefully she wouldn't just be one long vine. She'd have a bit more fullness and bushiness to her. So maybe I will do that at some point. But yeah, in the meantime, this one's growing really well, and I feel like if she keeps going at the same rate, she's gonna catch up with my big one fairly soon. The other thing as well is that I've got this one on a moss pole, and she's loving life on the moss pole. She's really kind of gripping on now and starting to give me some really big growth. And I've talked about this before, but the way that I tend to keep my moss poles hydrated, something that I found that works, I'm not really in the shop very well, something that I found works really well is just putting a little plastic cup or something like that at the top, making a little hole in it, and then I just fill it up to there most days, because I feel like that helps to keep the pole hydrated and means that her aerial roots can kind of form strong bonds with it, grip on nicely, and it helps to keep her happy. And this Monstera, I'm pretty sure is called Monstera Pinati Parsha, but for some reason I've been referring to it as Pinati Parsha for like the last 4 years, so I'm really stuck in saying that, and I'm pretty sure it's Pinati Parsha. I'll put all the names on the screen. But yeah, again, this one is very similar to the Monstera Peru in its growth structure. And I mean, to be honest, it's pretty much identical. It's just more green and less iridescent. And this is one that, to be honest, I do like it, but I don't really pay much attention to this plant because it's so low maintenance. It doesn't grow ridiculously quickly, and I feel like it kind of hasn't given me any very exciting growth in the time that I've had it. I mean, you can see it has got a new leaf coming there, but I don't know, it just doesn't excite me as much as some of my other Monsteras. I still really love it, but it's not top of my list. I got this one a while back from House of Kojo, who I do have a discount code for. I will link that down below. But they emailed me after I'd ordered it, and they basically said that this one wasn't in the best condition, but they were going to send it to me anyway for free. So I basically got this plant for nothing and have kind of rehabbed it a bit and got it on the whole back to health. It's still got a few leaves that are a little bit damaged, but it is, touch wood, pest free and hasn't given me any issues. So yeah, I feel like I don't have a huge amount to say about this one, but it's really nice, very similar to the Peru, very easy to take care of, and that's about it. And then I've saved the best till last. This one is probably the most prized Monstera in my collection. This is an Indonesian Monstera Soniavaragata, and Oh my goodness, this plant is just the most incredible plant ever. I am totally blown away by it. It's one that I wanted for such a long time and was never able to get. Even just a year ago, you'd see cuttings going of this plant for kind of 4 or 5 grand, which is just absolutely extortionate. And then Arrowed Market very kindly sent me a rooted cutting of it for my unboxing video, and I mean, I was absolutely speechless when I got this plant, and I still can't quite believe that I own it. If you just look at that variegation there, it's just so beautifully marbled, and I just love, like, oh, I'm speechless again. I just love everything about it, and I love the way it grows. I also cannot believe how quickly this one grows. I don't know if it's because I've got it in my cabinet, but this one actually grows quicker than my regular Adansonii that I showed you, and I only put it on the moss pole, I think about 2 months ago, and as you can see already, it's pretty much outgrown it, so I am gonna have to get it on a new moss pole fairly quickly. I'm also really tempted to chop and propagate it and kind of get a fuller plant going, plant the same cutting back into the same pot, but I don't know if I can bring myself to chop it yet. I know I say that about loads of my plants, but I just love the way it's growing. What would you do? Would you chop it, or would you just let it carry on? Because I don't know. But yeah, again, I'm using the cup method for the moss pole. I'm doing that with pretty much all of my plants on moss poles at the moment. I discovered that just before I went away on holiday to kind of keep them hydrated when I was away, and I don't know why I wasn't doing it sooner. It's honestly like the best thing ever, because moss poles can be really hard to keep hydrated, and you do need the aerial roots to grip on and attach in order to kind of support the plant properly. Oh my goodness, I have just noticed the most insane aerial root on the moss pole. Look at that. Isn't that crazy? I hadn't even seen that before. And this is why you give your plants a moss pole, because if I now wanted to chop and propagate that top section, I probably wouldn't have to wait for it to root. It's pretty much rooting in the moss itself from a higher point. And yeah, it also just encourages really beautiful, big, healthy growth. So I hope this plant continues to grow well. I will absolutely keep you updated with it, because I check on this plant on a daily basis, and I'm always so excited when I see it giving me new growth. It is giving me a new leaf at the moment, just there. But yeah, I mean, I love all of my Monsteras, but I think at the moment this is the one that is just really doing it for me. But yeah, let me know some of your favourite Monsteras in the comments down below. And if you've got any questions about any of these plants, or you want specific care videos on them, do let me know and I will make them. But yes, I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video.